Alright, YouTube. So, I have a lot of people asking me on how I set up my whole audio system, and one of the main things is a subwoofer. How to get a subwoofer to work in your home on the standard 120 volt outlet. Really, there's 100 different ways to do this, and I could think of maybe two that are the best way to do it. So the first way that I'll explain is that you could get an amp like this one, just this top amp. And what this is, this is not the best way. There's better ways. But this is a 750 watt amp total, which means out of all the channels here, they're all equal up, sorry, right there, they all equal up to 750 watts. Now one channel, so this one channel right here is 110 watts. And I think it's like a 7.1 channel or 5.1. I think 7. So whatever speaker you hook up here, right there, that one actually goes down to either this one or that one, I don't know. It's going to receive 110 watts at full volume. Now, 110 watts for a regular speaker, or one of those, is a lot for a regular speaker. Now, one of the other main things I get is, so that's one way you could do that. And so what you can actually do is, not 100% sure on this, but you could try it. You could take the front left and right speaker, hook them both up in I want to say parallel, and then you could drive that to your subwoofer. Now, a problem with doing that is that all the audio, so that's 220 watts, is going to be coming out of your one subwoofer. Now, the other problem with that is that you gotta know about ohms. Like, these are, I think it's 8 ohms. I'm not really sure. It's either 8 or 4 ohms. Or 6. One of those. Now, when you hook it up in parallel, I'm pretty sure it stays that same. And in series, it doubles. But you gotta make sure it matches your subwoofer. Now, the other problem with that is that since all the audio is coming out of your subwoofer, that's bad for it. And subwoofers are only made for low notes and stuff. So, to solve that, what you can do is you could go to Radio Shack, and build yourself a crossover. Now, what the crossover is going to do is going to hook up in line with your audio cable to your subwoofer, and it's going to filter out all the frequencies, say, from 300 hertz up. So, from 1 hertz to 300 hertz is going to allow it to pass through and go to your subwoofer. Everything from 300 hertz up is going to go out. I'm not completely sure on how to build those. I'm sure there's online. You could search how to build a crossover for a subwoofer or something like that. I know it's been done, so I know it can be done. Now, the other thing is that the subwoofer is very underpowered, and I don't think that is the best way to do it. It's possible, but at higher volumes I wouldn't do it because it's probably not the best thing for it. So that's one way. Now, the second way is the way I set it up, which is you have 2 amps. You have your main amp, and you have your second amp. Now, this amp right here is controlling every single speaker here, except for the subwoofer. Now, this amp has a crossover in it built already, so whatever gets fed from my auxiliary cable into it gets all processed through here and gets put out to all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 speakers down there, and then the one subwoofer. Now, the problem with that is that most of these amps don't have a subwoofer output that's amplified. Most of them have a pre-amplified output, which is this. This is pre-amplified, as you could probably see there, I think. Pre-amplified means that it's just the raw, right there. See, it says subwoofer out, subwoofer pre-out. And that's just the raw audio coming out. So if you hook any kind of speaker up to that, it's going to be really low and you're not going to be able to hear it at all, and there will be no volume control unless you turn this all the way up, which will then blow all the other speakers. So from the pre-out, a sneaky way to get by this is that you could get another amplifier like this one, which this is actually a standard radio. If I could get the tray to open, I don't even remember how to do that. It's a standard radio. Now, these speakers would normally hook up to that, and it plays CDs and a tape recorder, stuff like that. And it's a normal radio. So let me see if I can get this out. But the thing about this little amp right here is that it has an input, and the input is down here, in which you could hook up an auxiliary cable, and then you could hook that auxiliary cable to, say, your iPhone and feed music to it, and it'll amplify it out to these speakers over here. And I just got shocked. So that's that way. So what you would do is you would take the subwoofer pre-out, you would get an RCA splitter, one that looks like that, and have standard RCA cables. Now those standard RCA cables will run all through here, come out to this basically, and this will hook up, and this will be my right speaker, my left speaker, when I get one. My other one my brother took. Now it'll plug in right there, and that'll have both your subwoofers going. So you basically have from your pre-out to this amp, which is a standard amp, anyone can buy them, and feed it to the auxiliary in cable. So as long as this amp, as long as anything you buy has an input like this for an auxiliary in, you're good. And this amp is only 2 channels because it only holds 2 speakers. So for me, since it's always receiving the auxiliary feed, which is just the low notes from this amp, gets put out to these 2 speakers, which run down here and go to the subwoofer. That way, the crossover is in here. This is just amplifying this current, and then it's just putting it out to the subwoofers. I mean, that's pretty much it. Now, the bad thing about this is that, well, one, the subwoofers could be really underpowered. Because I believe since these speakers, which are originally to this, are 6 ohm, and I think they're 75 watts. 75 watt is not a lot. This subwoofer is 300 watt. So, now, I could turn this, let me give you a demo. So basically, I could show you when I play music here, everything's coming out on all of this. So everything's coming out on all the speakers and stuff like that. Now, if I unplug the subwoofer out, there is no more subwoofer. Now when I plug it in, obviously it works. So this amp is only controlling the subwoofers, and that's it. So now the problem with this is, since I was saying that's only 75 watts, 75 watts is really underpowered for this subwoofer. But the thing is that this volume right now is turned all the way up. Well, actually it goes up to 30, but up to 25 it distorts. So I put it up to 25. I never really go past that. And then this one's at 54. But now, since this is only putting out 75 watts under its own power, when you turn this volume up to, say, 35, this is probably putting out, say, about 150 watts, because as you turn volume up, all these channels start to get more power going to them. And so does the subwoofer pre-out. That's what changes the volume. So, as your subwoofer for this setup, your subwoofer may not be getting the full power it could possibly get, but it's pretty decent. As long as you get, say, like a 200 watt, like this is 200 watts per channel or so, or 100 watts per channel. That's pretty decent, as long as you hook it up like this. Now, that's my way of doing it, and for me that's worked a while, and I had these subwoofers running for hours, playing beats and stuff like that, and I had no problem with them. Nothing's overheating, but I also have a fan in there for the top one. So that's my way of doing it. And then all those other speakers down here are all hooked up to this amp. Nothing else is hooked up to this other than the 2 subwoofers. A lot of people don't understand that, how the subwoofer is running off just the 1 amp. So in quick summary, as my computer sends out the signals to this auxiliary cable, it gets put into here, and everything gets put out to these speakers, everything except for the low notes. The low notes go through the crossover and then get sent to this amp, this gray one, through here by this RCA splitter. Now the RCA splitter goes into these 2 channels, and these 2 channels will allow me to have 2 subwoofers up. But then I can also put 2 subwoofers on 1 channel, which will greatly reduce the power, and have a bigger subwoofer on that power. You can do it, but I'm not going to suggest that. So that's my way of doing it. Now, the third way to do it is to get a car amp. Now, I don't know much about car amps,